I fight for my people. I fight so that all the fighting I've already done hasn't been for nothing. I fight because I must. We've been soldiers a long time. We know the price of freedom, but people are still weighing things in their hearts. I fight for we few who did come home, only to find our country full of strangers wearing familiar faces.
Hello everyone, welcome to the 5th installment of the Skyrim Jarls series. Our guest in this episode is Ulfric Stormcloak, the Jarl of Windhelm, leader of the Stormcloak Rebellion, one of Skyrim's most controversial figures, a man who Skyrim fans either love or hate, a proud northerner to some, and a traitor to the Aldmeri to others. Join me as we delve into the life of the man who would be High King, and explore what drives his fierce desire for Skyrim's independence. If you want to watch more informative videos about Skyrim, do not forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Enjoy watching. Not much is known about Ulfric before the 4th Age 176. He inherited control of the eastern border of the imperial province of Skyrim from his father, Ulfric Stormcloak, then Jarl of Windhelm. Born into the respected Stormcloak family, Ulfric was destined for greatness, but his path would never be easy. A life marred by war and loss awaited the young, charismatic Jarl of Windhelm. From a young age, Ulfric was groomed for leadership. In 161 years of the 4th Age, when Ulfric was only a lad, he had the honor of being chosen by the Greybeards. His time with the Greybeards at High Hrothgar taught him not only the way of the voice, but also the weight of responsibility that comes with power. He spent almost 10 years at High Hrothgar, learning the way of the voice with Arngeir until the Great War came. While learning the way of the voice at High Hrothgar, he met Balgruf, who was about his own age. Balgruf would later become Jarl of Whiterun and known as Balgruf the Greater. Thus began a rivalry between these two young men that would last for years. These two men would also represent the two sides of the Skyrim Civil War. Ulfric trained at High Hrothgar and learned how to use Thuum. Balgruf, on the other hand, never achieved this honor. Ulfric believes that the Greybeard's philosophy of the way is a pure and beautiful one. However, he has never been able to adhere to it, except during his years of seclusion in High Hrothgar. Yet Ulfric knew from his youth that Thuum was a force to be reckoned with. For this reason, none of the lessons he learned from Arngeir were wasted. The only problem for Ulfric was that his teacher Arngeir never forgave him for using Thuum for anything other than kine worship. In the second half of the 4th Age 171, a great war called the Great War broke out across the lands of Tamriel. This war between the Empire and the Aldmeri Dominion affected Skyrim as well as other provinces. Young Ulfric, who planned to become a Greybeard, left High Hrothgar at the outbreak of the Great War to join the Imperial Legion and support Skyrim's interests. During the Great War, he fought alongside Galmar Stonefist and Legate Ricka. However, he was captured by the Aldmeri Dominion during the Dominion's campaign for the Imperial City. Captured by the Thalmor, he endured unimaginable torture. It's said that in his darkest hour, he was broken, and in his weakness, the Thalmor learned the Empire's secrets. While imprisoned, he was interrogated by Elenwen for information, under which they learned of his potential value, being the son of the Jarl of Windhelm, and considered him an asset to their influence in Skyrim. He was made to believe information obtained during his interrogation was crucial in the capture of the Imperial City in Cyrodiil, even though it had fallen before any information could be gained. The Thalmor dossier on Ulfric says he was then allowed to escape. Whether he escaped on his own, and the Thalmor were unable to apprehend him, or if he was intentionally set free, is not known. Returning to Skyrim, a hero of the war, Ulfric's passion for his homeland was now mixed with a deep-seated resentment towards the Empire. The Markarth incident was a turning point, where Ulfric's demand for the free worship of Talos set him on a collision course with Imperial law. So, what was this Markarth incident, and why did it cause so much tension between Ulfric and the Empire? During the Great War between the Empire and the Aldmeri Dominion, the capital Cyrodiil was under siege. For this reason, the Empire deployed all the military forces on its borders towards the capital. This meant that many cities in Skyrim were left without a military presence. Markarth was one of these cities. The Reachmen, a race native to the Reach, seized the opportunity provided by the Great War to rebel and establish their own kingdom in the Reach in 4th Era 174. In 4th Era 175, the Great War ended with the Empire signing the White Gold Concordat, an act which banned the worship of Talos in the Empire. Igmund, son of the previous Jarl of the Reach, stated his family and their imperial colleagues sought help from Ulfric in ousting the Reachmen invaders. Igmund's father, Hrolfdir, promised Ulfric that if he retook the Reach, then Hrolfdir as Jarl would allow free worship of Talos in Markarth again. Ulfric agreed and marched with his militia to Markarth. Ulfric led the militia to recapture the Reach in what would become known as the Markarth Incident, during which numerous war crimes were committed. It is rumored that Ulfric used the Thuam to achieve this victory, and he ultimately overthrew and captured the forsworn leader, Madanak. Under normal circumstances, Ulfric would have executed Madanak, but thanks to Thonar Silverblood, a prominent citizen of Markarth, Madanak was imprisoned in the Sidna mine. This was a political move to avoid future problems. The surviving Reachmen fled to the hills of the Reach and became known as the Forsworn. The Great War was over, and the Imperial troops began to spread across the Empire's borders to reassert the rule of law. When Markarth was returned to Imperial control, the free worship of Talos there was officially permitted, a condition Ulfric demanded before he agreed to cede control of the city. Until then, the Imperial Legion had been largely ignoring Talos worship in Skyrim, and Jarl Hrolfdir hoped the Thalmor would not find out about it. Eventually, word reached the Thalmor, who sent a contingent of agents to Markarth to personally demand Ulfric's arrest. When the Thalmor threatened Jarl Hrolfdir and the Empire, there was no other choice. Eventually, the Empire rescinded the agreement due to pressure from the Aldmeri Dominion, and Ulfric and his militia were expelled from the city and imprisoned shortly after with Hrolfdir's help. This betrayal left Ulfric bitter towards the Empire and is considered to be the initial conception of the Stormcloak Rebellion. Following the incident, Ulfric reportedly became uncooperative to direct contact with the Thalmor, and he was eventually deemed by them to be a dormant asset. His father Hoag, the Jarl of Windhelm, usually referred simply as the Bear of Eastmarch, died during his incarceration. Ulfric, his only son, was forced to deliver his eulogy via a letter that he had smuggled out of prison. Leaving prison, Ulfric returned to Windhelm to find the city in mourning. The citizens were said to have been calling out for justice and war against the Aldmeri Dominion. Naturally, they sat Ulfric on the throne, and he became Jarl. It wasn't long before Ulfric's rebellion began, which at first was composed of minor skirmishes. Despite his enmity toward Ulfric, Jarl Balgruf of Whiterun initially refused to take a side on the resulting war. Upon the death of Skyrim's High King Istlod, the Moot was convened, even in the middle of the Civil War, and formally named Istlod's son Torygg as the new High King. While the Moot traditionally gathers only when a High King passes away, leaving a direct successor, Ulfric seized this occasion to express his wish to secede from the Empire. Torygg, familiar with Ulfric's reputation as a valiant soldier, held him in high esteem, and Ulfric's boldness at the Moot only heightened the young Nord's admiration. Following Torygg's rise to power, and amidst ongoing civil strife, Ulfric made his way to Solitude to meet with the newly crowned High King. The court, under the impression that Ulfric sought a dialogue to further articulate his separatist aspirations, received him warmly. However, they soon grasped the true purpose of his visit: a direct challenge to Torygg's rule. Bound by time-honored Nordic custom, Torygg was compelled to accept the duel with Ulfric, as declining would tarnish his honor and potentially result in the Moot reconvening, possibly ending his reign. Narratives vary regarding the events that unfolded. Ulfric's version is that he felled Torygg with his voice and then delivered the final blow with his blade. Whispers among the populace suggested that Ulfric's Thuam was so potent, it rent the young High King asunder. Those loyal to Ulfric saw Torygg as a betrayer to Skyrim, justifying his demise. On the other hand, Ulfric's critics argue that his challenge lacked any semblance of honor, branding Torygg's killing as an inexcusable act of murder. Torygg, youthful and less experienced in combat, stood little chance against Ulfric, a battle-hardened veteran with the Thu'um at his command. Sibyl Stentor, Solitude's court wizard who nurtured Torygg, believed that the young High King might have earnestly entertained Ulfric's plea for Skyrim's liberation from the Empire, given his respect for Ulfric. Ulfric, however, interpreted his triumph as evidence that the Empire's influence weakened Skyrim, advocating that the region would thrive independently. After Torygg's death, Ulfric fled back to Windhelm. Sometime after this event, the Imperial Legion managed to ambush Ulfric at Darkwater Crossing in order to capture him. The ambush was successful, and Ulfric surrendered himself without a fight. He was then taken to Helgen by the Imperial General Tullius to be executed. During his execution here, he was saved by the dragon god Alduin, who appeared centuries later and destroyed Helgen, and continued to continue the Stormcloak Rebellion. This played into the hands of the Thalmor, who were happy to see the Empire in a difficult situation due to the war in Skyrim. According to Thalmor reports, the elves were secretly financially supporting the Stormcloak Rebellion. Whether Ulfric knew about this or not is not entirely clear. The core tenets of the Stormcloak philosophy are deeply rooted in Ulfric's conviction that Skyrim must withdraw from an empire he deems decadent and decayed, a realm already vanquished by the Thalmor. Haunted by the memory of countless Nords who laid down their lives in the Great War, Ulfric views the White Gold Concordat, the peace accord struck between the Empire and the Aldmeri Dominion, as an egregious act of treachery against the people of the Empire. Ulfric also seeks to become the next High King, as he believes there has not been a true High King in Skyrim for generations, and that previous kings were puppets that were hand-picked by the Emperor. Some Nords feel that his opposition to the White Gold Concordat and the banning of Talos worship in Skyrim is simply a facade for him to gain more supporters, to gain his true goal of becoming High King of Skyrim. However, seek out the story of how Ulfric claimed the Jarlship of Eastmarch, and a different portrait is painted, one of a man steeped in the ancient ways, a son of Skyrim, true to the path of his ancestors. This throne, he declares, belongs not to me, but to Ysgramor, to my father. It is their legacy I uphold, and it is for their honor I strive, hoping to be worthy of their esteemed memory. In his heart-to-heart with Galmar Stonefist, Ulfric reveals a heavy burden. The knowledge that his uprising will claim lives and bring sorrow to Nord households. Despite this, he is resolute, driven by a conviction that Skyrim's liberation is paramount. To Ulfric, the Empire is but a leech sapping the strength of his land to mend its own war-torn flesh, a war it chose to abandon. Moreover, he views the Empire as a barricade, thwarting his people's efforts to purge the Thalmor's meddling from their cherished homeland. With several of his policies being nationalistic in tone, many non-Nord and some Nords consider Ulfric to be prejudiced. He is believed by some to have sequestered the Dunmer population in Windhelm to the slums of the Grey Quarter, and the Argonians to the assemblage off the docks, issuing a decree forbidding the Argonians from living within the city's walls, contrary to his father Hoag's more soft policy. However, this hostile belief toward outsiders is shared by much of Windhelm's populace. Dialogue with Niranye, an Altmer who lives within the city, actually suggests that it is the Dunmer who chose to live in the Grey Quarter due to being too proud and naive to understand the way things truly are. Pleas from Dunmer citizens often fall on deaf ears, leading them to believe he has nothing but disdain for them. Some even claim Ulfric refuses to send aid to the Khajiit caravans and non-Nord towns that have been raided by bandits. Dialogue shared between Ulfric and his steward Yorleif indicate, however, that he does not attend to the issues in his city because he is too preoccupied with the Stormcloak Rebellion and the greater issues of Skyrim to worry about them, saying it is the guards' jobs to deal with such issues. It is often cited as proof that Ulfric was not a Nord nationalist fascist, that Dunmer, Altmer, and Imperials could have jobs and live peacefully in Windhelm within its borders. However, the fact that Argonians are banned from entering Windhelm, Ulfric's statements such as "Skyrim belongs to the Nords," and his treatment of Khajiit and Dunmer make him seen by many as a fascist leader. As you get to know Ulfric and get to the end of the video, you may have this question: is Ulfric Stormcloak a hero, a villain, or something in between? His story is a tapestry woven with threads of honor, betrayal, and ambition. As we walk the streets of Windhelm, we can't help but wonder, what is the price of freedom, and who pays the cost? Thank you for joining me on this exploration of Ulfric Stormcloak's life and legacy. Whether you stand with him or against him, one thing is clear: his impact on Skyrim's history will be felt for generations to come. Before closing the video, I will leave you with Ulfric's speech, "Why do I fight?" which is part of the dialogue between Ulfric and Galmar Stonefist. If you enjoy my videos and want to support me, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. See you in the next video.
We've been soldiers a long time. We know the price of freedom.
How long are you going to wait?
Is any man ever ready to give the order that will mean the deaths of many? But people are still weighing things in their hearts. Many, I fear, still need convincing.
What's left of Skyrim to wager?
They have families to think of.
How many of their sons and daughters follow your banner? These men and women, they call themselves Stormcloaks because they believe in you.
Tell me, Galmar, why do you fight for me?
Since when does a man need a reason to protect his family, to defend his homeland? I fought in the Imperial Army in the war against the Dominion. I bled and spilled blood for the Empire. The Empire would have us become their slaves, as they have become slaves to the Thalmor. I will not live as a slave, nor will I die as one. Are we not one in this?
I fight for the men I've held in my arms, dying on foreign soil. I fight for their wives and children whose names I heard whispered in their last breaths. I fight for my people, impoverished to pay the debts of an empire too weak to rule them, yet brands them criminals for wanting to rule themselves. I fight so that all the fighting I've already done hasn't been for nothing. I fight because I must.
Some say Ulfric desires to be king and nothing more. Have they not seen that his anger floats on a sea of tears?
My father died during my imprisonment after the Markarth incident. When finally set free, I returned to Windhelm and was greeted by a city in mourning, clamoring in angry voices, calling out for justice, for war. They sat me on the throne of Ysgramor, the throne of my father. I only hope I can prove worthy of that honor.
I oppose tyranny. I oppose those who tell me how to live, what to think, and what to believe. I am a man. Skyrim is man's homeland. There is no shame in that.
Untold numbers of Nords died defending the Empire against the Dominion. And for what? Skyrim being sold to the Thalmor so the Emperor could keep his throne. We're fighting because we're done bleeding for an empire that won't bleed for us. We're fighting because our own Jarls, once strong, wise men, have become fearful and blind to the people's suffering. We're fighting because Skyrim needs heroes. And there's no one else but us.